Hi, Jessica here. Welcome to my storybook. Today, I'm going to read a book on chapter book. On this third chapter called How to Fight Racism. Today, last time I had read this book on chapter 2. Now, it's chapter 3 for the day. Chapter 3. How to Explore Racism and Identity. She spoke with a tone but rather manner in her voice, as if she was still aborting events that had happened years ago. Like she spoke confidently, frequently sharing the details of her story. Tara Brujo, a lone black South African woman, was sharing her testimony before members and guests at the new church in Cape Town. She spoke about the Freeze Must Fall movement of 2015 when she saw how white Christians respond and absolutely and criticizing still compassion and understanding. In 2015, officials at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg announced a fee tuition increase of 2.5% for the upcoming school year. In response, black South Africans had led the way in protesting and increasing school fees that would have locked out many black people from a quality education that they could not afford. They used the phrase "fees must fall" as a moralizing phrase for the movement. As the movement gained momentum, Christians from across the color line weighed in. Some Christian groups intentionally came out in support of the protesters, but other Christians saw fees must fall as confrontation and divisive and violent. They launched the colorblind activity as a way to evacuate for unity, reconciliation, and a stop to racism for all races. For the first time, I realized that my brothers and sisters in Christ, when it came to this issue, we are not on the same page. I was so confused. I still did not have the vocabulary for it. Tabitha explains. The Tabitha had become a Christian through the ministry of Pentecostal white church, and these people were her spiritual family. Her church friends, her brothers and sisters in the household of faith. That when it came to matters that affected her daily life as a black person, this group of people felt like strangers to her. Tabitha shared that she often experiences growing communality with people who did not share her religion. It was interesting that you cannot relate more than those who do not confess the faith than those who did. Even the white people who were not Christians somewhat got it. They understood the injustice and access to education. The black Christians and other oppressed people often found similarity with those working for justice, even if they did not share the same spiritual conversations. Tabitha's revelation during the Fees Must Fall movement intentional a process of spiritual revelation for her. So for me at this stage is a healing process, elimination and representing it, and also realizing that how the Bible is taught to us is important. And preservation of racial justice forces time behold to reconsider what it meant to be both black and Christian. She had been taught by white Christians that the gospel of Jesus Christ is the great unfriendly. But when the reality of racism demands a response, she found there was limits to white Christians to support. Despite this sense of betrayal by white Christians, she did not lose her faith. She embraced her blackness as part of what it means to be fully human. Exceptional understanding. Racism and different departmental. Tabitha's story is all too common. Many black Christians in the United States have shared similar experiences during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. Throughout history, people of color have had to endure racial awakenings that decentralize their foundational beliefs by faith, social, sub, and others. Such as Tabitha intentionally lack the words to describe these experiences. People can often struggle to know what they are going through as they develop a greater sense of racism awareness. But social scientists have named for what it means to discover a sense of one race. It's called racism and dampening departmental. And this chapter explains the cultural needs for people of all races to critically expose their racism indefinitely and ensure they are moving in a direction towards greater self-awareness and sensitivity. One of the most true contemporary treatments of racism indefinitely the department comes from Dr. Beverly Dallin Tatum, a social psychologist and a former president of Spelman College in Atlanta in 1997. She wrote a book called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria and Other Conversations About Race. And the book proved to be so helpful. She wrote a reverse and not dating edition in 2017. In it, Dayton defines racism indefinitely as the meaning each of us had construction or is construction about what it means to be a white person or a person of color and the race construction scholarship. Knowing that racism definitely is not just for black people and other people of color. White people have racism indefinitely that must be explored as well. Similarly, racism indefinitely the development refers to the process of defining for oneself cultural significance and social meaning of belonging to possession racial group. When cross development the mobile for racism definitely the parliament for black people in 1971. Since CrossFit first department his mobile, other psychiatrists had created mobiles for other people groups, including black immigrants, and white people. In general, the states are definitely development moved from unawareness tactically at longer age to greater awareness as people get older and have more interactions with others. The tables below adapt from cross original mode. Detail the stages of racial and defining development. People of color are represented by the first mobile and the white people by the second. As we move from 41 to 47. One of the most valuable aspects of learning the racist or cultural indefinite mobile is that it gives a framework for different stages of racial awareness. The word departmental indicates a process of change. Racism indefinite is not static. If you can locate what stage of racism athletic culture indefinitely, you are a personality that you can move internationally move toward racism towards an awareness. Look at where you are in your racism, causing and then find the deployment. The difference, deployment. The different phase of racist, racial, indefinite deployment, including conformal, dishonor, represents and emotions, introspection, and integrity awareness. In general, one begins with less awareness of racial dynamics and unconcurrent of exceptions of white people and their own cultural practice as normative, acceptable, and even profound. Time behold the black South African women at the beginning of the chapter might have been moving forward conforming to this scenario in host racial indefinite deployment. The Freeze Must Fall movement helped her realize that racism scholarly with other black South Africans meant conflict with her white Christians community. If you had that movement that got her thinking, Tabiho might have more easily found the language she needed to express her racism journey. Knowing where you are in your own racial identity deployment can help you name the emotions you are feeling and can move you towards more mutual levels of racial awareness. At some point in life, most people had an occurrence with racism that distort their previous thinking. In the United States, some Native Americans have had been capitalized by protests against the construction of the Dakota Across Access Pipeline. People of Latino American descent had rallied to oppose family separations at the border between the United States and Mexico. For non-black people, the bulls of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor have been capitalized for racial awareness and activities. These disposals events sometimes join black people and other people of color into a new recognition of the sadness of race in their own lives and the border culture, the nationalities, and appreciation phase of racism of definite development requires and resentment of low previous racial programs and began a process of exploring their own racial or elect group with more internationally. In a white center scholarship, white people had their own process of racism and definitely deployment. White people tend to grow up with a colorblind mentality, meaning they are taught to not see color, and that the only way to treat everyone equally is to pretend that everyone is the same. In the best-selling book, White Fragility, Robert DeAngelo lists several statements that many indicate a person has certain that they are of colorblindness. I was taught to treat everyone the same. I don't care if you pink, purple, or polka dot. Focusing on race is what divides us. Let the devil of colorblindness denies the historic and tangible ways that race affects people of color and shapes the thinking and behaviors of white people. The lines of colorblindness begins to crack for white people in the discussion integration phase. It tactically happens while people, when they develop a personal relationship that forces them to confront the relevance of race. This season of life may include a sense of discomfort, confusion, or guilt as the white people realize his or hers namely advantage and a scarcity that favors witness. If the white people choose to colonialize continues down the path of racial awareness, colorblindness eventually gives way to color caucasianness. And the book White Awake, authors and pastors, Daniel Hill relates how he first incorporated his racism identity as a white man. The journey began when he officiated with the wedding of a friend who was an Indiana district. The wedding reflected his friend's Indiana culture through the food and clothing and the music at the wedding. He remarked to his friend, "You have such an amazing culture. I wish I had culture too. It's easy to pretend what comes next." Daniel, "You may be white," his friend said, "but don't let that lure you into thinking you have no culture." His friend's remarks about white people having a culture stuck with him, and he began learning more about the reality of race and its past and present reality in the United States. And good comment for a friend became a positive step in his journey from colorblindness to color concussedness. Following the contact phase that may be a period with litigation, when a white person climbs even more tightly to unhelpful racial ideals. They may blame people for color for their own hardships, without accepting the fact that history, instruction, and politics continue to influence and impact racial and ethnic minorities, while offering racial privilege to our white people. Many people remain stuck in this phase. This is well reflected to the authorities of Tim Husband, a white man from Oakland, Ohio. If you apply for a job, they seem to give the blacks the first crack at it. He responds to the poll question, and basically, you know, if you want any help from the government, if you're white, you don't get it. If you're black, you get it. Husband seems to be answers to the recording oneness concepts of reverse racism, which is the idea that the effort to address historic racism inequalities has led to racism against white people. It is clear that people of color may act in prejudicial ways against white people by judging them solely based on their skin color. But racism is more than an individual or interpersonal attitude. It includes systems, structures, and structure on operated by those who held the power to make decisions. As journalists and authors Rona A. Londa explained it in her book, "Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race." Everyone has the capacity to be nasty to other people, to judge them before they get to know them. But there simply aren't enough black people in positions of power to enact racism against white people at the current grind scale is currently operates against black people. Look at the economy and politics. Two of the predominant seats of power in our nation today. It is unclear that white people's seats of power in our nation today. It is unclear that white people still are currently rather the positions of power nationwide. In 2018, about 40% of people indefinitely as racial or ethnic minorities. As of 2019, just 4 of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies were black, not include one black interesting CEO, only 11 with Latinos. Looking at the boards of directors of these companies, people of color had 16% of those seats. In 2018, Sheriff Davis of Kansas and Denver Holland of New Mexico became the first two Native American women elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. No African American has served as a U.S. Senator for the certain state since Reconstruction until Tim Scott was appointed to fill a predicate in 2013. The erroneous concept of reverse racism and the perception among some that white people had it harder in the United States because of race than people of color is a categorizing sign of people who have much further to go in their racism in the parliament. White people who are able to politically handle their feelings were resistance to the idea of white privilege or the idea that racism still exists can progress to the phase called political independence. In these days of white racism indefinite and fundamental, people understand racism as an issue as they seek out people of color to help them understand the bit, but they primarily rely on others to do the work of fighting racism without recognizing their own ability or responsibility to be part of the solution. At the most natural stage of white racial definite deployment, automatically white people become allies and allies for black people of color. For every racism and ethnic group, individuals should be striving to recognize the ongoing importance of race in scarcity today. Race in an identity can assess the influence of where one is likely to live. How much a person makes at their jobs with scarcity networks, the inherently and the quality of a healthcare they receive. At the same time, the race and ethnicity are not the only molecules, or they definitely. Someone who is productively engaged in their own racist and definitely the parliament will always be aware that there are sons, daughters, sponsors, workers, and believers. The goal for everyone is to have a positive view of their racism and achievement indefinitely, one that does not require accessibility or rejection of culture or expressiveness, and one that values the diversities of other people. Rational motor people who assess not only their race is a factor in how they experience and the world, but also that indefinite is more than skin deep. White law racially or photographically. The life as slave enforcement in the United States was never easy, but it was even harder for black women born in North Carolina in 1813. Harriet Jenkins spent much of her life involved in the sexual exploitation commonly and done by enslaved women. Her slaveholder, a white man named Dr. Norcom, made his interest in raping her while she was Newcorn, made his interest in raping her as she was still a child. She spent years refusing her advancing and close instead to have children with a white lawyer who she hoped will free the children they had together. He did not. Finally, he escaped north to freedom. A journey that includes 7 years of hiding out in her grandmother's attics. Harriet Jacobs wrote down her life story and published it in a book called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. For centuries, black people had told their own stories in a personal pursuit of racial justice and limited hardship that could capitalize in life for many slaves and formerly saved black people. Nonetheless, and white people who are otherwise on the hard misinformation about slavery and read negro lets the one Jacob produced and got a picture of the injustice in hatred and a color instruction. These are photographic works inciting unnecessary conversations about racism and slavery and motivating a small number of people to work for the abolition of slavery. In a similar way, recounting the story of race, whether as member of the marginalizing group or as a white person, can also create the kind of positive engagement need for such cultural change. One reason people struggling to work productively about race is because they had not explained their own stories. A lack of awareness or long narrowing around race would make it harder to locate yourself on the racist and definitely departmental structure. You may be overwhelmed to the racist traumas you are carrying or the prejudice you harbor. Writing a racist autobiographically is one way to uncover fundamentality and experiences of one race, and they will allow glean lessons and insights for those experiences. Erasing of virality is a self-reported account of your history of race, and it provides its choice to better understanding your own story and to build empathy for others. There are no set rules for writing down your racist autographically, but here are a few suggestions that may prove helpful. First, do your best to actually write your story down by hand or on a digital device. Writing your racist photographically you to re- forces you to replay low racial record. Perhaps for the first time, writing down their story will thus offer memories similar to experience on unknowingly and all pencil from a shoebox stashed beneath your bed. Writing also forces you to think carefully about your words and how you want to express your thoughts as you decide how to describe your experiences in writing. You will develop clearer ideas about them. Don't get bogged down trying to craft equal pose. Stick figures or thoughts can always be fleshed out loud. Writing is also sheltered. You may want to let close friends or family members read your research or autographically, or not. Maybe you will publish it on a blog or even a book. But you should not feel any pressure to share your story. Writing a racial autographically is mainly for law unemployment, and it will be useful whether everyone ever sees it or not. To explore law of thinking, ask yourself the following questions. What is my earliest memory of race? Have I had any negative experiences associated with my racial differently or that someone else? When I did start growing racial stresses, who are in what period of life did I learn the most about race and their accessory? Can I describe the different stages of race and differently? The parliament I've gone through what made me aware of each. What concerns me about my racial past? What encourages me about my racial past? What do I do? Racial justice. What is purpose for me? It's natural when writing about the history of racial experiences to reflect on the future as well. What do you want to be true about yourself when it comes to race and racism? How can you attack and fight racism today? What will you do differently in light of what you had done before? Fan Wetton John Donald started writing down her life experiences at 5 years old, reflecting as an adult on the habit of keeping notebooks. She said, I think we are well advised to keep on novelty turns with the people we used to be, whether we find them others intentionally accompanying or not. Writing a racial autobiography been an emotional experiences for many people. You may remember gaining a distraction in courses you had as a child. You may recall how your parents understood race and one at the middle. You may realize how a comment you made years ago can have come across as racist. The record of all previous slaves may not make a tattooed company, but it's honest company to retell the truth about our own racial lies. We would never be able to tell the truth about our collaboration democracy. Explore our family's reaction differently. Ambassador recall family assistance therapy seeks to address issues of mental health from the perspective of family units. It recognizes that much of who we are as individuals is shaping the community, especially the family. Explorer of racial identity will be a cornerstone without also delining into our family's past and present viewers and experiences with race to explore the family racial identity. You will need to do some resource and have some honest conversations. You will also need to prepare yourself spiritual and emotional of what you might find. You might feel shock, saddening, or ignorant when you learn on families racial never. In some cases, you may be encouraged as you realize how intentional parents or members have been in development of racial awareness and fighting against racism. Perhaps you'll find helpful practice in your life and experience that you can teach others and more can securely apply in your own interactions with different people. In many black families and families of color, older generations do not talk about the discriminations they face. During so many bringing up feelings of trauma and shame that can evoke an emotional and even a fiscality response. In some cases, family members may not want to talk about the incidents of racism because they want to shelter others in their families from feeling the same pain they endure. In my families, there may also be feelings of guilt or shame associated with what recent family members did or believe. They're undeniably these stories, with possible sensitivity and care is essential to understanding the racial identity. You might begin by looking at old family photos, trying to identify who is in each person. Do you know where they lived and in what era? Did they immigrate to the country? From where? You may consider talking to siblings about race or racist attitudes in your family. They may remember incidents or feelings that you did not, and their knowledge can round out the reconnections. Parents, grandparents, and other relatives should also be constructive, but bear in mind that you may meet with largeness and all represents. Be honest about your proposal. Tell people that you are trying to understand the racism history and define better. And to do that, you want to understand how the people who influence you think about such topics. The goal is to gather information, not necessarily to tell them what you think. As open-ended questions such as, what would it look like growing up in your family? Or what do you remember about what was happening in your town when you were a teenager? Listen without offering your own errors or judgment. Even if you find the stories recalling or painful, your willingness to listen will encourage more conversation. In discovering the family's racial background, you will learn more about what you believe about race and why. You will more easily see how communities can contribute to helpful or harmful ideas about race. And you will become more aware of how you can encourage those causes to you to find intentionally steps towards racial justice. How to teach kids about race. I come around into learning about racism history and is teaching little kids about the past and present reality of race. Race is already a different enough subject among adults. How do you talk about it with kids? Whether you are a school teacher and parent, a relation, or a friend. You may encourage a child who had questions or experiences around race. Those occasions often come as unexpected after a day at school, in the middle of a television program, at the dinner table. In those moments, your response can even move the child further along the journey of racial justice or cause them to stumble. The stakes are high as we train our children to view everyone and treat people with dignity. We won't be able to abdominally respond as an adult. If you haven't already thought through how you might teach children about race. The first step in teaching kids about race is teaching yourself. You cannot appropriately respond to someone else's questions about race if you have not asked and attempt to answer the question your own. This is the data movement to build up racial awareness. Learning what the Bible says about how to treat people who are different and exploring the unracial arbitrarily or cultural elements that will help you respond in the right ways. Lord, taking an important step on the journey by reading this book. Just remember that the more you increase in your capacity around issues of race and racism, the better you will be able to teach younger people about the topics. Teaching kids about race is similar in some ways to teaching kids about sex. Sex and sexuality are the lightning topics that are popular and frequently will confuse and the potential for on. At the same time, they are far too important not to discuss. If adults avoid teaching kids sexual ethics, then kids will likely get their information from potentially less helpful sources such as pop culture or their peers. The same is true regarding racial justice. It's incumbent on the adults who care about children to make sure they are known as much as possible about how to be a grown and compassionate adult, especially on the topic of race. When talking to kids about race is often necessary to push through low feels. What if I say the one thing? If what if I don't know the answer? What if I am replaceable to racism? I see no going anywhere. These questions are negative nature and unavoidable. You cannot go around them. You must push through them and talk about them. Fumbling through a conversation about race is often better than not having a conversation at all. You must also realize that talking about race is not a one-time lecture, but an ongoing dialogue. You cannot sit down and have the race talk with kids. You must have many race talks. Knowing that you have multiple opportunities to talk to kids about race should also relieve some of the pressure. You do not need to carry every bit of necessary information into a single conversation, and if you happen to get something wrong, or you later realize how you could have explained something better, don't worry. You may have the opportunity to revisit that dialogue at a later point. Isn't it? You may not want to wait until a painful or confusing incident to talk about race with kids. Every conversation about race with kids has to start somewhere. You can even use the ARC or racial justice as a framework, awareness, relationship, and commitment. You don't have to use those exact terms, but the categories are helpful to make sure you are given through instructionable within the middle school age child about racial justice might go like this. Have you ever noticed that people look different? Some are tall, some are short, some have Cadillac skin or chocolate skin. These different makes life fun and never boring, but sometimes people do bad things, and we treat each other differently just because of how we look or where we come from or how we talk. But there's but there's something you can do about that. There are lots of things we can do to help people feel safe, vulnerable, and loved. Awareness. First, we need to learn about who they are instead of bringing skill differences. We can we can celebrate. We can celebrate them. Relationships. We should be we should also be excited about being friends with all different kinds of people. People who have different heart, people who have different hair, clothes, food, and languages that we do. We might discover something new to like about the world. And people with lots of different friends do the best job of getting along with others. Commitments. But just commitment. But just like you have rules in school, you have rules as a grown up too. Have you ever thought a rule was unfair? Just like people can be meant to each other. An unfair rule is kind of like being mean. As you get older, you see lots of rules that seem unfair. The question is what you are going to do about it. If you see something wrong, you should absolutely have the ability to raise a low voice, take action, and try to change the world. You won't always be able to make the changes you want, but it's trying that counts. If you can remember to learn about people, have lots of different kinds of friends, and work together for change, then you'll be someone who helps make the world a better place. The basic outline of this conversation will remain same for other kids, but you can now use different vocabularies and add more complex examples for children of any age connected access conversations about race to the real world, memories, trips that taken, books that read, corny events is usually a good practice. But we can't just talk to kids, but we just can't talk to kids about race. We have to show them about race too. When learning how to multiply in grade school, you may remember your teacher pointing out bases to the 10 blocks. There were little curves of raises in rows of ones, tens, 100s designed to make the distribution principle of multiplication understandable through the use of tangible objects. In a similar way, a child learning about race may find the concept confusion when it is undescribable losing words. Adults can help children understand race, and more importantly, racial justice, by using concepts explainable and experiences. Visionary can help a child better understand race. A box of everyone with its many colors can show a child the variable variety. Drawing pencils will get boring very quickly if we only have one or two colors. But the rainbow of colors makes pencils fun and pleasing. Going to the physical site of the place that has an important story to tell about racial justice or injustice can help too. You can read history of remarkable or not. Walk around the building or the location. Learn about the place online beforehand and lose the entire experiences as the conversation's catalyst. The best conversations about race interest directly with what a child experiences regularly in his own his or her world. Whether it comes from a comment, a cat's chat door, or a cartoon mail, or interaction at the grocery store, pausing in a movement, or Sunday outdoor to talk about race made such conversations feel normal and regular. These are the culture, space, and relationships, kids, or culture every day is one of the most different ways to teach kids about race. Once you start looking, you find that the problem is not finding opposed opportunities to talk about race with young people. It's having more than you ever experienced. Read a pipeline of mental health therapists of color. I am a big proponent of mental health care through professional therapy. During the novel coronavirus pandemic in 2022, I started using an online service for therapy. In the first conversation with the therapy assistant to me, I can tell that she did not have the racial awareness to help me cope with the issues of racism and deal with constantly. Thankfully, I was able to switch therapists, and my second therapy was a black woman who understood both personality and professionality how to treat the wounds of racism. Racial thorniness is consistent and spectral. It divides from the potential countertarianness, and social experiences connecting to social meaning that one's race or attention carry. The words are so particular that it can be hard for the white people to understand and flattering treat clients of color who have some mental health issues related to their experience of racism more than simply an issue of difficulty. Diversionary. There is the challenge of preparing therapists to sort as diverse racial and Atlantic climate, and as affected the training and culinary. The mental health field has interconnectionality, ensuring that the mental taught in traditional mental health programs is incarnate and isn't acceptable grow to all groups. The public health therapists from racial and Atlantic multiple groups, along with a leg and cultural response training mental meals. There is an overload need to define about both the demographics and quarter of the mental health professional. Of course, this does not mean that white therapists cannot effectively work with people of color. With enough study, experiences, and parents, therapists can sort clients for the vulnerable of racial, and eclectic backgrounds. But according to Paul Resource Center's Race in America in 2019, Savannah Poston's race had a significant impact on their personal endeavoring, and that's essentially true for therapists too. The poll survey indicates that 84% of Black Americans name racial discriminations as a major reason for why it is harder for Black people to hear compared to 54% of white respondents. People of color are more likely to see race as a central part of their identity. Of Hispanic and Asians, 59% and 54% of each group respectively consider race as a key component of their identity. At 74%, Black people were most likely to highlight race as core to their identity. Just 15% of white respondents said race is important for how they will think about themselves. Because white people and people of color think about and experiences race differently. White people often do not have the experiential criminality backgrounds to make them the best candidates for addressing equality opinions or racism. All their parents will have to work hard to treat military health issues arising from instructions assistance racism. But white therapists may have to work even harder. One way to elevate the environmental affairs racism has in the mental health and bridge the culture gap between therapists and clients. It is to create a pipeline therapist of color. Becoming a licensed therapist requires an undergraduate degree and usually an advanced degree. Hundreds of hours of potential experience and an ability to pass the unstabilizing test for charismatic factor. These milestones help ensure that the people who treat people's mental health are qualified to do so, but they can also oppose adjusters to people of color in terms of the profession. An article in Practicality today notes research interested in melatonin represents 30% of the population, like 83.6% of mental health professionals identifying as non-Hispanic whites. The artist goes on to state that in 2013, only 5.3% of psychologists were African Americans, and even today, only 5% of students enrolled in graduate level psychology programs are black. Why are there are so few people of color in the mental health fields? The reasons are many. There are senators in some communities about admitting mental health like illness and seeking professional help. Since many racial and a lot of militaries also face hardships due to physicality poverty, causes another factor, and the lack of racial and athletic divided in men and mental health fields, meaning also make it harder for people of color to see it as a viable professional pathway for them. We need more therapists of color. Greater funding and more talent and professional opportunities can help developing a pipeline of people of color who enter practicality. In conventionally in related fields, churches and communities organizations can pull funds to create scholarships for students of color who want to go to college or graduate school or guaranteed school to become professionally mentor health practitioners. In addition, scholarships create to support and advance therapists of color, such as the Association of Black Psychologists, already exist and should be supported. You or those shorts color could contribute to scholarship funds for people of color interested in getting training in mental health and therapy. In addition, pastors and other church leaders can help remove the stereotypes of therapy by preaching and teaching it about the importance of getting mental health care and by talking about their own experiences with extortionary. If we or someone you know is a mental health professional of color, consider assembly or joining mentorship or internship programs to train up an accelerated generation of therapists and constructors, bringing in therapists and counselors occur to law shows or workplace to talk about the equal issues of racial autonomy and identity. Representation is important, and seeing someone in a mental health professor do a fresh law research or elected definitely hugely involves the lots of in a smaller coordination. Definition is a professional field does not guarantee that people of color receive more or better treatment, but create a pipeline of mental health professionals who are people of color. It could provide the possibility that more people suffering from racial trauma would seek and get the help they need. The ARC of racial justice encourages us to build our awareness, not just of scarcity, but our own souls. Many people assume they know what they believe about race and racism and why they'll believe it. So the opposition goes unaccepted by taking the steps to reflect on our experiences with race. We can better understand our attitudes on the topic. It takes support, reflection, and willingness to unpack law racist territories. By doing so, will make you a more effective advocate for racial justice. I have read chapter 3 in this book. Next time I will be reading chapter 4, how to study the history of race. This book called How to Fight Racism will continue until next time. I'm Joseph Crudup. Take care and God bless.